Hey guys, welcome back to Page Break Podcast with Rich and Brian. Excited to have you here. We've got one of our new authors, Daniel Moore, who's publishing a book with Genesis Publishing House, but he's got some other projects. So we're just going to kick it over to Dan and let him introduce himself, and we'll be off and rolling from there. Good to have you, Dan.
Well, thank you for having me, Rich and Brian. Appreciate the opportunity today to talk a little bit about my books that I believe God has given me. Stories that were put in my mind quite a few years ago, actually, in 2018, about my little grandson, JP, who was born with a disability, a chromosomal deficiency, uh, and through the initial sorrow and initial shock of figuring that out, working with him and seeing his joy and his spirit despite all of his issues there, he exuded such a happiness about him. A beautiful little boy with strawberry blonde hair and blue eyes. And through years and then various experiences on the farm here, which I'm a farmer in a place called Dusty, Washington, of all places Dusty, but works good here. We grow some of the best wheat in the world here. Those experiences with JP lent to a story that I had written for my daughter back in 1993 when she was only 5 years old. A story, I've got a picture of the original story. I can't believe I actually kept it, but here's the original Billy the Balloon story. I would come home at night after a long day on the tractor, and this particular day I came home and tell her story. But this particular day, I'd been along the fence row where there's barbed wire and whatnot. There was balloons stuck in the fence, much like these balloons that I've found over the years, just stuck in the fence rows. And so I'd come home, I'd tell her a story, make up a story, because some of them said happy birthday, some of them said congratulations or good luck or something like that. And so I'd make up stories for her to try to go along with that balloon. How did this balloon get lost? Who let go of it? How did it get let go? Maybe it was a very sad occasion when it did get let go, or maybe they let it go for hope for the future, something like that. Who knows what the symbolism was behind that? So this particular one, I wrote this story, set it aside. 25 years later, she had JP. This is the mother of JP. So this is how God continues to work over decades. And he was one day with me where I was babysitting him, and I was having coffee with a fellow farmer, a cousin actually, and JP walked up to the window in Miranda's dining room, looked out the window towards their barn, and put his right hand up on the window. And I had to quit talking to the guy I was talking to, because all of a sudden this boom, I said, "Oh, there's a story here." And this is actual scene of how all that looked. And I said, there's got to be a story here. And so I kept thinking about it. In my mind, I have to ponder for many, many weeks, or in this case, decades. But anyway, many, many weeks. And it wasn't until God put me on my back due to a fever from a virus that came through, and I was laying on my back for 3 days. That's kind of biblical sounding, I know, but I got up off the couch after 3 days and said, I've got to write this story. I got to finally type. And I'm not a great typist, but I banged out the story within probably half a day or something. After I got that done, within 2 weeks, the other two stories came along, Randy the Rooster, and then Wally the Walker also came along too, excuse me. And those were all in my head, but it took years to get those published. But the initial Billy the Balloon, once I had written it, just felt like a burden was off me. I finally got this story out of me, and the purpose for me was to, say that God causes all things to work together for our good and for his glory, with Romans 8:28 and 1 Peter 4:11 there. And I wanted people to see that a little boy who, you could feel sorry for him. He's not going to be running with the other kids. He still can't talk. We can see how that little boy can be a blessing to so many people. And he has over the years. And I thought this is the way to do it, a children's book that would illustrate using inanimate objects, animating them to help kids to see that maybe they're not alone if they have problems. If the balloon in this story gets torn apart, and you can get torn apart by life circumstances, but God causes these things to work out for his glory, our good and his glory. And if we follow that, submit to his will, man, amazing things can happen. And that's where it flows all through Randy the Rooster, and finally in the culmination of Wally the Walker. And we get to see that within 3 short books, help people and grandparents and parents work through maybe some of the issues with special needs children. Even though JP is special needs, he is a special kid.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah, a couple of the things I was going to ask you, you touched on, so that's appreciate you go ahead and doing that. So, what would you say, as you've written three, and with possibly more to come, book one versus book three, your writing experience and your just the way you process the stories and put them together? Do you see a difference on your progression as far as your? Do you feel like you're improving as a writer as you tell the stories?
Oh yes, yeah. That's I reread these things now because I basically did all the editing and everything on these books, and I'm so happy to work with you guys now, who's going to help me out polishing this new book I've got. But I think, oh my, all the mistakes I made in that first book, and maybe I corralled them at the end there in Wally the Walker. But the Billy the Balloon is really kind of the overarching story. Randy the Rooster and Wally the Walker almost kind of fill in the blanks and then set the story up a little higher level, as and God is causing these things to work out. And I at the time I wrote these books, I thought maybe I should just make it all one book. And this fellow that we were talking about, he said, no, just keep them separate. That would be just fine. So I would almost call Billy the Balloon the mega story, and the other two would be the mid quills or something, if there is such a word, instead of a sequels. But they do fill in the blanks. The other two books do fill in the blanks. Uh, and I don't know why that worked out that way. It was just the way it happened in my head. Anyway, it is what it is. I love the name. I like alliteration. When growing up, we always had named all of our trucks, our combines. For some reason, we animated everything because when you spend hours, 8, 10, 12 hours a day on a machine, it's a lot easier to work with that machine if you give that machine a name or something like that. It just does help us get through the day, I guess, as a farmer.
Yeah, that kind of that actually leads into my question. I'm very interested in the farm angle, um, because it's not you don't run across people who are full-time farmers very often anymore. I planted 12 tomato plants this week, and I also planted 12 lettuce and 12 kale. So I have 36 plants. So I'm not a farmer. I am going to grow a few things, but that's different. So I'm curious how kind of your background and that farm life led to the writing. Like, what's the connection there? And do you feel like that shaped what you wrote? Even in this newest book that's getting ready to come out, I know it's got several connections. How do you feel like God's kind of used those connections to help get these stories out?
That's a good question. Well, don't give up on your aspirations for farming, because a little old show back when I was a kid called Green Acres. That's how that guy started. Was on the patio of his New York condominium. But anyway, yeah, farming. Of course, I'm a fourth generation farmer. It's in my blood. The whole psyche of the seasons is in my brain. Preparation beforehand for the next season, and then just keeps going throughout the year. That's part and parcel of who I am. Both my grandfathers were farmers, and it's just a sad thing that there aren't very many farmers in the United States. I mean, we're losing so many every day. But that family farm thing is critical, and these books do show the family emphasis. And part of what I wanted to show also in these books is the conversation that agriculture needs to have with non-agriculture. The rural and urban come together in this big pie party, the big celebration that they have with Sally, the little girl who sings, brings people in, and they get donations for the Walkers for Wobblies Foundation there. And so I want to bring all those things together, and so that disconnect between rural and urban would tend to go away. The food you get in the grocery store is made by blood, sweat, and tears. People are actually watching and taking care of their farms, even from wheat to cattle. There's a lot of love, a lot of concern, a lot of hopes, and in my case, a lot of prayers, because I used to kneel down after I'd seed a field and pray to the God of the harvest, our Father in heaven, for blessing upon that crop, not only to provide for me and my family, but I could provide for our church and other organizations that need donations too. So it's all a part of that psyche of farming that I'm afraid we're losing in America right now. I want to continue that. I hope these books will answer to that, for non-farm people especially. I mean, I've got a picture in here of a tractor that I used to drive. the yellow and the green. Uh, that's something that maybe a lot of urban people don't see. How does this actually work out on a farm? What's the process of going from, a conception of growing a crop of wheat, let's say that's going to feed a lot of people with the calories, and then to the culmination of harvest? And then where does it go after harvest? How does it get to my grocery store in a bag of flour? Those are all things that maybe it should be talked about more often. So I've got a lot, not only special needs in there, but urban and rural, and then pictures of a farm, and the also the patience that it takes from we, for example, we plant in September, but we don't harvest until July of the next year. So you got to have a lot of patience. You got to have a lot of planning, budgeting to get your family throughout that year, because you only get one check a year. So you got to be very careful and wise about how you deal with your money. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping a lot of those things come up there, let alone the illustration of Romans 8:28, illustration of 1 Peter 4:11 in these books, to know that the wind blows where it wills, out of John 3 chapter verse 8. What is probably the main theme, the main verse in this book, all through how the Spirit of God is moving through various circumstances, things that we don't even think about, and how a family kind of uses those things with the intention of their heart to help somebody else out who's less fortunate. And the selflessness to the point of recklessness is part of that whole book. People take a chance on connecting with other people. People take a chance with building a walker, and things like that. Or I hope it come out in this book. So anyway, is that a long
Yeah.
answer?
No, that was good. That was detailed. That's that's good to hear. My dad was a farmer growing up. Our
Good.
grandparents had a farm, and it's
Yeah.
been bought out by people we know
Yeah.
in the community. They
Yep.
own it now, but I grew up, on a farm, being around the farm a lot
Yeah.
in
Well, that's
Indiana. And
good.
then my mom's family in Kentucky, they do tobacco and cattle. So the farm life is not, that's not rare for me to know stuff about farming. But yeah, like you said, if you're urban and just don't know anything about it, it's you probably don't even think about it, honestly. It gets done and you don't know, or like, yeah, it's not even a concern. It just shows up,
Right.
whether it's milk or meat or vegetables or, what grain or whatever. So
Exactly.
what kind of reactions have you received from people who have read the book, whether it's, be it kids or be it adults or maybe strangers you don't even know, but you know that they read the book? What kind of reactions have you received and how have the reactions made you feel?
Well, yeah, it's been everywhere from reactions from tears to just plain joy, just for the fun of reading the books and seeing the pictures, especially from farm people who like to see those farm pictures. I've got an old Ford pickup and another one, and a lot of those things trigger things with maybe the older guys who had driven those vehicles. Then people who have dealt with special needs children, uh, either grandparents or parents. Yeah, there were tears. Libraries have one librarian called me and said what great reaction they had when she read the book to the kids, in their story time things. So those are all positive feedback that I've gotten. Online has been a lot more, heartwarming, quote unquote, heartwarming little children's book kind of a thing. And that warms my heart. I don't want to, I want people to read these books and want to pick them back up another time and share them with other people. Because that little piece of word of God in there, the wind blows where it wills. It's living and active and sharper than any two-edged sword. And that will, if people who aren't even believers read that book, that word of God is getting into their hearts. And I'm so thankful for that. The magazine that I write for is a public, and that was after I wrote these books and I started getting into this industry-wide magazine for wheat farming. I try to input that within all my stories that I write for that magazine as well. Somewhere in there, the God's word is located in there and doing its work. The reactions have been very kind, very good.
Well,
Good.
that's a good lead into what I've got next. Talk about for a minute, and we're gonna run up against our time limit here soon, but talk about for a minute your author experience as a whole, not just in these books, but the publishing part, the trying to figure out marketing. A lot of the people who will listen to this, our listeners, are would-be authors. So what kind of advice, tips and tricks, experience could you share with them? Because you're going from children's books now to a fiction novel. You write nonfiction for magazines. So you got a lot of irons in the fire there. How would you do you explain that all to somebody who's trying to get started out?
Boy, that is it's quite a subject, and it's a spooky one for a guy who lives in a place called Dusty, Washington, where I'm not around authors very much, if at all. And I'll tell you, it has been just a move of God for me. Even to find the first connection with the book company a long time ago was God caused that one through, I just was doing research, very frustrated, and all of a sudden something clicked with this one person. Much like you guys, same thing happened to me. I was very despondent about research on the internet. I thought none of these things seem right to me. All of a sudden I came back from the grocery store, which is figured prominently in these books at grocery stores, but place where I like to go. I like to eat, by the way. The came back to from the grocery store, and there was your website. It just popped up on some search engine or something. I started researching you guys, and I thought, well, this is interesting. Then you and I, Rich, had a great conversation and prayer, which I so appreciated your prayer with me on that day as we committed this whole project to the Lord. That meant an awful lot to me. The other thing was to stay out there and keep reading, keep studying, talk to other authors that you maybe know, or you can do that online now. Even from Dusty, Washington, I can talk to somebody in Martha's Vineyard, which brings up this book. I don't know if you're familiar with this book, a guy named Squire Rushnell. When God Winks, he's been very influential to me. But over the years, I've sent him all these books over the years, and he's been so encouraging to me. His wife, Louise, is a great inspiration. But he kind of gave me a lot of tips on how to help me find my way and just look for the possibilities that God has, which, that's part of this thing. How does Billy the Balloon float into a fence row, and how does that happen? What effect does that have on people's lives? Just this one little book or a little balloon, and it says, "I love you." That's it, written in red, just like the old song. How does that affect people's lives? For authors looking, write your story. People always come up to me and they say, I've always wanted to write it. I said, well, write it. Do it. Get down, sit down. It's kind of hard work. You got to fight through it. For me, typing just doesn't come quickly and easily. I'm sure someday we'll just be able to talk into the thing and it'll just do it, whatever. But just do it and then worry about editing later. Worry about, but get your story down at least for your loved ones. Tell a story. Tell your loved ones, your wife, your grandkids, your grandchildren. You know who's going to write the story or read the story, but have it down for them. I've always wanted my grandchildren to know what the heart of grandpa is, and they can read it to their kids, and we can pass this down. Much like my house here that was built in 1917 has gotten down to me, a lot of years later. So I can still see my grandfather's handiwork here in this house. So what a legacy. He loved Jesus, and so do I. So did that answer your question, Rich?
Yeah, absolutely. You actually
That's
said
good.
something that Brian and I tell every person that calls us that says they have an idea. We say, just start writing. Like you can only say, I have an idea for so long before you just move on to something else. So I think everybody wants it to be perfect right off the rip. And it's probably not, that's what editors are for. I mean,
Yeah.
your book with us is with an editor right now being
Yay.
edited. Uh, so that's just put it down. That's the best advice you could have given is just
Okay.
start putting it down on paper in the
Good.
computer.
Yeah.
We'll help you make it into a real book. Actually, we even have a program now where you can talk it.
Okay.
And then we'll take your audio and we'll reverse it instead of making an audio book out of it. We'll take your audio, we'll have a writer and an editor turn it into a book for you. So
Oh,
I think the idea to start getting stuff down it was the key concept. And you just reinforce what we tell people all the time. So I really like that.
well,
Yeah, and
that's good. I mean,
we didn't even tell you to say that either.
no.
Yeah.
Well, it took me from this initial writing. I mean, this is just in a notebook, right? We did it on the first two stairs of the hallway going up to the bedrooms. That we just sat there and I started writing things down. It took 25 years to put it down in the computer, but I had to have JP, the main character, to write all those stories. And I mean, it's not coincidence. It's the possibility of God with his mother actually having JP that these books came out. So God causes all things to work together for good. For those who love him and are called according to his purpose. So very good. I stand upon that verse.
Absolutely.
Yep. No, that's great. Well, we're going to close out here. So, Dan, appreciate you coming on and talking about your process with us and your books. And yeah, encourage everyone to go check them out. They're on Amazon or pretty much anywhere books are sold. So go check those out. Definitely, there's good messages in there for anybody. So yeah,
Yeah, and
thanks for being on.
I'll link
Go
them
ahead,
in the
Rich.
description. So if you listen to this, you can just go right into the description, and I'll put the Amazon page right there where you can click in and buy them.
Yep.
Thank you,
All right.
guys. Good to
Yeah.
see you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan. We appreciate it.
God
Yep.
blessings to both of you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. This has been a page break with Rich and Brian, and we are out.